take a look at a couple of important remarks which have been made by Donald Trump. Important remarks which have been made by Donald Trump after that all-important meeting between Trump and Prime Minister Modi in Houston, where so many in India felt that the coming together of India and the United States in the fight against terrorism saw only one primary objective: the naming of Pakistan as the epicenter of terrorism. We say it all this time, but now the US President says no, in fact it's not Pakistan, it's Iran. What are the implications of the statement, and should we really be trusting Donald Trump?
I want everybody to be treated well. I have a very good relationship with Prime Minister Modi. I have a very good relationship with Prime Minister Khan. And if at any time they say, you know, we have some points that we think we can maybe iron out, I think I'd be an extremely good arbitrator.
Barely 24 hours after his mega event with Prime Minister Modi in Houston, an about turn by the US President on mediation and Kashmir. But if the Indian government was annoyed, they didn't show it and instead told reporters to wait for Modi-Trump bilateral on Tuesday night.
Trump keeps raising the question of mediation. So tomorrow's bilateral meeting is not going to resolve it because it seems so. He keeps going back to it. How do you read this?
You are aware about our position. We have mentioned about this in the past. But my request is just hold on. Just hold on for the meeting tomorrow. I think it's not very far.
Trump didn't just talk about mediation. He also declared his trust in Imran Khan and said he believed Iran was a greater terror threat.
I trust Pakistan, but people before me didn't, but they didn't know what they were doing. So it's just one of those little problems in life. You know what I do? I trust this gentleman right here.
President, yesterday you shared the stage with PM Modi. He alleged that Pakistan is the hub of terrorism. Do you endorse that or do you disagree with that?
I really have been pointing much more to Iran. I mean, Iran, if you look at that's been really the state of terror, and I've been saying it's the #1 state of terror in the world. I was sitting there and I heard a very aggressive statement yesterday from India, from the Prime Minister. I didn't know I was going to hear that statement.
All eyes are now on Prime Minister Modi's meeting with Trump in a few hours, where a trade deal between India and the US may emerge as the highlight. Bureau Report, NDTV.
So where exactly does India stand as far as the equation with Donald Trump and the United States is concerned? Is it a glass half empty or a glass half full? Would we like to believe something when in fact the reality may be something different? Now, needs to be mentioned, in about 40 minutes from now, Prime Minister Modi will be meeting Trump again, this time in a bilateral context, and perhaps a lot of the issues that India would like to flesh out, particularly with regard to Trump repeatedly saying that he'd like to mediate between India and Pakistan, something we do not accept, will be thrashed out. But it would also be interesting to see if there are some remarks before the two leaders begin their talks, because that has been the case when Trump met Imran Khan. Joining us in the studio at this stage, Meera Shankar, the former Indian envoy to Washington, D.C. Thanks, ma'am, very much for being with us. Seema Sirohi, the columnist with the Economic Times, joins us from the United States. Nish Acharya, former senior advisor at the Obama White House as well. With us, Geeta Bhatt in the studio with me. Shalabh Kumar, a Trump supporter and founder of the Republican Hindu Coalition, joins us on the phone line as well. And Ambassador K.C. Singh also with us this evening. Let me go across to you, ma'am, first. When Donald Trump says, I can be a good arbitrator, I can help, I can certainly help, I'm ready to do it, and he says this 3 times, despite one would hope somebody telling him that, look, that's not the way it works with India, what are we led to believe today?
I think one thing you have to notice, and that is that now he adds, if both countries want. Which is not something he added, when he first made his offer. First, when he made it, he said Prime Minister Modi had asked him to mediate on Kashmir, and he would love to do it. Now, the nuance has changed, so it is if both countries want. And he's fairly clear that India does not want it. I mean, we've made that fairly clear. So I wouldn't put too much stress on it. What I would really like to say is that this is reflective of the fact that the US being a great power, pursues multiple objectives at the same time. So, if they need India in terms of the challenges they face from China, and both countries are coming closer because of the perceived challenge that China poses. Then on the other hand, on the Western side, where Trump has exerted in the past quite a lot of pressure on Pakistan, he now feels he needs Pakistan because he wants to withdraw his troops from Afghanistan, and
so he
wants a deal with Taliban.
Yeah.
So, and this is how, you know, with great powers it always works. They always seek to balance multiple objectives.
That doesn't work as far as we are concerned, ma'am. Many would argue with many saying that the US is now our principal strategic ally. That is also disputable. Seema, let me come across to you next. One of the points mentioned by Donald Trump in the presence of Imran Khan was, I heard a very aggressive statement from India, from the Prime Minister. I didn't know I was going to hear that statement. He's referring, of course, to the several remarks made by Prime Minister Modi as far as Pakistan was concerned. Now, what did Trump seriously expect? Did he not expect India to talk about Pakistan at a time when the two countries are you know, in a standoff sort of situation? What did he expect? And as a strategic partner, as a strategic ally, what is India left to believe of that?
So what President Trump said yesterday surely was a surprise to Indian officials, even if they didn't show it. I'm sure it rankled them because at the Howdy Modi rally, he was taking laps with Prime Minister Modi. But that said, I think I would agree with Ambassador Meera Shankar that this is Trump, and I would add that this is Trump in an unscripted moment. So he stayed on message when he was in Houston. But when he is in this environment where journalists are asking questions and, you know, he just goes into the flow, and this is what comes across, that this might be what he really thinks. But I would add the trajectory of Indo-US relations is going a certain way, and I don't think we need to worry too much about it. And yes, we should hold on till the meeting is over to see what comes out of it.
Seema, you and I should take a bet that what comes out of it will be another warm statement in favor of India, and then you can rest assured that there'll be another balancing act. We've seen this over and over again at some level or the other. So again, is the glass half empty or half full? Go ahead, yes.
If I can add one extra point, President Trump really thinks he can bring two countries together.
He says so. I have never failed as an arbitrator, is what he says.
Exactly.
Those were his words.
So he truly believes in his own powers.
Yeah.
You know, we may or we may not, but he does. So this is what keeps coming out, whether it's North Korea, whether it's reworking the Iran deal, whether it's India and Pakistan, that's what drives him.
Okay. Shalabh Kumar, as a founder of the Republican Hindu Coalition and a major funder for Donald Trump, do you not feel terribly disappointed at this stage? A lot of people in India would feel disappointed when he's made so many statements which you know, appear to go against what we've saying, what we have been arguing. You know, I mean, on mediation, on aggressive statements made by Prime Minister Modi. How would Indian Americans feel about this?
Well, they feel pretty good. I agree.
They feel good
with Seema, and yes, I agree.
Why would they feel good? I'm confused. If Donald Trump says Iran and not Pakistan is the epicenter of terrorism, despite hopefully knowing what the situation between India and Pakistan is, then how can Indian Americans feel happy about that? I don't understand.
Okay, well, let me make you understand. Then if you, let me at least put my point across. You see, with President, which like Seema has pointed out, with Ambassador Tandon has pointed out, in different manners, you really need to look at his actions, not the words. I mean, he does believe that, if asked, he could be a good player to mediate. But that's if asked, and he knows that it's not going to be asked, it's not going to happen. But what really is the reality on the ground? We have been at it for so long now. He promised in 2016 during the campaign to Republicans in the coalition, to our rally, that he will be very tough on, note the word, cross-border terrorism. That was in his speech. It wasn't just an accident. It was in his speech on October 15, 2016, that he will feel Pakistan accountable. He has done that. Foreign aid.
But now Imran
Pakistan,
Khan appears to be his great friend, Mr. Kumar. Imran Khan appears to be his great friend now. Pakistan not the epicenter of terror.
Let me just ask you this: Is China, President Xi, is his great friend? We ought to quit, just paying attention and parsing the words spoken.
Okay.
Look at the actions.
Yep.
What are the real actions that take place? And, of course, it's great for media to pick on words, parse on words.
No, but we have to pick on words. That's the job. It's words which count. I mean, Mr. Kumar, I don't understand the one bit that you keep mentioning, that it's not just the words, it's the actions as well. So what do we do with Donald Trump's words? We just discard them? This is the President of the United States.
Yes, I would tend to think over there to just take the position like Seema is saying, like Ambassador Tandon has said.
So ignore what he says. We are dealing with a world leader, the most powerful man in the world, who you support, who we should ignore. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm not. Don't ignore him at all. See, just look at it. In Houston, who was he with? Was he with India, or was he with the 15,000 protesters Imran Khan had collected?
I think we are having this discussion principally because he was with Prime Minister Modi 2 days back, and now it's a different scenario altogether. But just a moment, I want to go across to Nish Acharya. Okay, Mr. Kumar, I'll come back to you. I want to go across to Nish Acharya, former senior advisor at the Obama White House. I'm sorry, we've lost that line with him. Let me come across to you, Geeta. Prime Minister Modi has invested a great deal in the equation with President Trump. When we are, as a nation, repeatedly confronted by a leader who says, I'm going to mediate, I want to mediate, I'm a good mediator, I'm a good arbitrator, knowing fully well that that is a red line India will not accept, then why are we harping on Donald Trump?
Well, you see, Mr. Donald Trump and as well as Mr. Modi, they both are the heads of the governments, of two largest democracies in the world. Now, when two of them, they come together, and the kind of statement that they gave in itself spoke a lot. Now, when Mr. Trump came out with a particular statement, which in the past also he had said, and as ma'am was just mentioning, that he has added now a clause with it that if India is wanting it, but the fact remains that each country they have their own priority list, and each one of us. Each one of us, India has its own priority list, United States has its own priority list.
Our priority list is closely linked to our strategic equation with the United States.
Yes, and the important part
it has to go beyond joint exercises, right?
Vishnuji, it is also like, for example, when this event took place at NRG Stadium, I think it was probably one of the first chances where the American president, used an Indo-US flag on the presidential podium and not the presidential seal. Now, that in itself is a very big statement.
So, we want the symbolism.
It is not just a matter of symbolism. I think the meeting is about to take place, and
we are hoping against hope.
Has already been. We have already seen.
You're hoping against hope, Geeta.
That is what you think. I mean, you may. I mean, we all are optimists, and so I think is the Indian government.
Okay, Nish Acharya, we've got the line back with you. One of the other points mentioned by the US President is that people in my position have treated Pakistan very badly in the past. I trust Pakistan, but people before me didn't. That's another remark which he said. How do you see the new remarks made by the US President where he believes that Pakistan needs to be trusted. Nish, go ahead.
Can I just add something?
All right, I'm sorry we don't have that line with Nish. We'll try and fix that. I'll just come back to you half a second. I want to go across to Ambassador K.C. Singh, technology failing us this evening. Ambassador saying, isn't it time that we call Donald Trump's bluff and got over trying to rely upon him to fulfill some sort of national aspiration? As far as the equation with America is concerned, we need to look at the words of this man as well, not just hope against hope that he's going to deliver on his promises.
Look, I'll position myself somewhere in between. I think if you go to the past, immediately after the Pulwama attack, for the first time, the Americans didn't rush in and tell you not to retaliate. So what was coming out of Washington was, you have a right to self-defense. Now that was a variation of whatever we had heard in the past, and which is what resulted then in Balakot. And then of course the Americans did play a role in the background getting Abhinandan back. So don't forget, it was Trump who tweeted from Hanoi, there's going to be good news tomorrow. So between the Saudis and the Americans, they contained it and got Abhinandan back, which helped this government with the elections, helped with the projection, and also the listing of, the head of Jaish Mohammed. Now this was done by the Americans when the Chinese were just not budging. So the Americans have done their bit. Now the question is, when you invite him to a rally, to a Houston rally, I don't think you can blame Trump, because he told you he was surprised. Because he's sitting in the rally and you bring up Article 370, you bring up 2611, 911, and a cheer goes up in the hall. So no, that's what he said. He's surprised by the, people seem to agree with it. There I think he's referring to 370. Now that doesn't mean that he's completely endorsed your stand. He is a guest there. Now you bring him there and you have your own agenda, because Prime Minister Modi was playing to his Indian audience back home as much as Trump was playing to the American audience when he spoke. He's talking about unemployment coming down, inflation. So 80% of their projection was to their own constituencies. Then they were talking to each other through the people there, and the people there were incidental. They're not even Indian citizens, most of them, and they were asked to endorse articles. Where does that really place it? So Trump, what he's doing is, he's not going to abandon Pakistan. But if you look at it, Imran Khan tried every trick they could through the media and this and that to have him somehow adopt a role on the Kashmir issue. He ducked it.
He didn't do that. Yeah.
Now, on whether Pakistan is the epicenter or not, we know that they will not name directly in a meeting like that, because they need Pakistan for Afghanistan. And even today in the UNGA, I think a positive development is, he talked of Iran, he talked of North Korea, he talked of Venezuela. There was no mention of India, Pakistan or Kashmir. So we should go by the negative thing, that he is not raising it. So indirectly he has accepted the Indian stand, but to think that he will become your advocate against Pakistan, that is, I think, if we are projecting it, it's wrong to project it. That is why the disappointment, but it's not going to happen. And today the meeting will basically focus on trade, because that is the big issue which is a stumbling block. And in his GA address, he talked of a trade deal with Japan. He didn't mention India. So that's right at the top of his head. If we can manage to get the trade deal out, we managed to knock Pakistan out of the UN thing. It's not come up in Geneva, it's not come up on Security Council agenda, and it was not in Trump's speech. Let's take what we can and take it as a victory, and let's not try maximizing it.
Okay, Nish Acharya, I believe we've got you back. Nish, can you hear me first of all? Is the line clear now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great,
Sorry
Nish.
about
So, no, not a problem. One of the points that's been mentioned by Trump was, people in my position have treated Pakistan very badly. He was talking about the past. I trust Pakistan, but people before me didn't. Did the Obama administration believe, perhaps stronger than Trump does presently, at least the way he cares to state it, that India's position was right on terrorism and that they had no problem in stating it directly, as opposed to now, where in a best case scenario, we're looking at Donald Trump balance India and Pakistan?
So I think the reality is that it's more complicated with Pakistan. On the other side of Pakistan is Afghanistan, and until recently we had as many as 100,000 American troops there. And so the relationship with Pakistan is not just about India, It was about Afghanistan, terrorism, Al-Qaeda, and the safety of 100,000 American troops at the peak of the war. Now the situation has changed a little bit, and so President Trump can speak about Pakistan a little bit differently. So I think it's probably not accurate to say his predecessors felt differently. I think the circumstances were very different. And vis-a-vis India, India was a little bit more important because of the war in Afghanistan in the eyes of the Bush and Obama administration. Now things have changed a little bit. Trade is the priority, not Afghanistan and geopolitical wars. And so the president has taken a slightly different position. But I think Pakistan always has to be viewed over the last 20 years as it relates to Afghanistan and India, and therefore Kashmir as well.
Okay. Ambassador Shankar, best case scenario for us at the end of this entire UNGA process, what would realistically be for our foreign policy mandarins a success?
Well, I think both sides have been working towards a small trade deal because you have a number of irritants which have cropped up in the relationship, differences given Trump's America First agenda and the fact that he is going to push for US interests, and India's own position as a developing country which needs to preserve the space for it to grow in future. So whether it's medical devices where India has capped the prices, basically to look at the issue of public health, or e-commerce where we have made more restrictive rules for companies like Amazon and Walmart, or access to the Indian agricultural market, which the US has been pushing. These are some of the issues which the US has been pushing. From the Indian side, we have the imposition of tariffs on steel and aluminium. We have the issue of withdrawal of GSP on $5.7 billion worth of Indian exports. And of course, we have the tightening of the whole process of the H-1B visas. So if we are able, I don't think we'll be able to resolve all these issues, but if we are able to work out a small trade deal in a pragmatic way, and the speculation is that it could be India reducing duties on certain agricultural products, providing US greater access, and the US in turn restoring GSP for certain products, maybe not the whole basket. So if you do get a mini trade deal, I think it diffuses the tensions which have built up on trade.
Sure.
I think it's also important I think it's likely that President Trump may talk about Iran.
Right.
And from our point of view, we need to stress the importance of avoiding conflict in that region because it directly impinges on our interests. And the third thing I think which would be very important at this juncture would be to get some sense from President Trump on how he plans to proceed on Afghanistan. But looking beyond this, I would say that there are some lessons for India.
Right.
One is that you have the US is a very important partner for you strategically, economically, but at the same time, because the US has multiple interests which it seeks to balance, India also has to keep that leeway.
Not perhaps have too many expectations on just the United States and be more sort of quote unquote non-aligned as we've been in the past.
I won't call it non-aligned, but we have to give ourselves the negotiating space to deal with the United States.
Okay, last word to you, Seema. What would you actually see as a win-win for? No, in fact, what I actually wanted to ask you was this: the hyphenation of India and Pakistan. This is another position of India's where we believe that we've been very successful in the last couple of years. That India and Pakistan are not hyphenated; they've been dehyphenated as far as America's thinking is concerned. But at this juncture, if you've got a US president willing to try and mediate or offer mediation, and that hyphenation tends to come back in. So isn't that another problem for New Delhi?
I would disagree a bit. I don't think there's hyphenation. Look at the US-India relationship and look at the US-Pakistan relationship. One is mostly about positives. With Pakistan, it's a negative list. You know, they are asking Pakistan to do X, Y, and Z. In Afghanistan, the economic relationship is very small compared to the US-India relationship. So I think it's just a different league altogether. I would not say that this, as I said earlier, it's President Trump's desire to win a Nobel Prize, to mediate, to get one of these big problems in the world solved somehow, and at the same time say that Obama couldn't do it, you know.
All right. Okay, I'm going to have to wrap this up. We've got a lot of news coming in, some breaking news, and in about 17 minutes from now is when we expect to get some visuals of Prime Minister Modi, President Trump getting set for that bilateral. Comments before that meeting certainly we'll be looking at very closely, because they do take a few questions. But what happens after that is what we would actually be looking at.